Welcome.
Hey guys, welcome back to
Another episode of
episode 5, Ebony and Ruth podcast.
Podcast.
Yes, so today we're talking about a very, very dear topic to our hearts. And what's the topic, babe?
The topic is faith and sexuality.
Faith and sexuality. Yeah.
Fun fact, guys. This is our third time trying to record this podcast. I guess there was really a lot of attack coming from somebody not wanting us to record this. We were close to skip this week, but we hope and thank God that we are able to do this.
To post this, yes.
to post this. And it's a really cool topic, actually. The topic that we talk about since we started dating. We started talking about this very intensely during the dating period, but also now as being married for 7 years and having kids. So it's
we're not like experts in the field, but
we are not. We are not. I hope one day we get some experts here on this podcast that can talk about it. There's a lot of experts like therapists also that do crazy stuff. That would be amazing thing. If there's some people listening to us that are experts in that and they're therapists or things like this, holler at us. We would love to have you here on this podcast. We really love doing that. But for today,
so based on our experience, we'll be speaking today.
Yes.
Experience when it comes to faith, and then also when it comes to us exploring our sexuality as a couple, maybe not as a couple. And the thing is, sexuality is so mystified in the sense that it's either taboo or exaggerated.
Yes.
So I would say every one of us has a sexuality from the point of birth. So it can be simplified, although the topic in itself is complex. But we would like to address that from a Christian standpoint, combination of faith, and also what we've learned over the years and how we try to implement that in our lives and also in the lives of our kids.
Also, I like to say that most of the times you don't combine those two words like faith and sexuality. In the world, like people will be asking what like sexuality and faith does not work together because they see it as a dirty act. They see it as something that is mysterious and something that can be shameful. It can be, you have different preferences and you want different things, so it can be perverted. And so like people see it as a secret act, so that's why they don't combine it with the word of faith. Like it would be weird asking somebody, oh yeah, did you try it out to have sex while listening to worship? People will be looking at you and be like, wait, what? Huh? Like,
because sex in itself should be an act of worship.
It is an act of worship.
It should be. I mean, it is an act of worship, but it depends on who we are worshiping that sense.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's why I find that this topic is so interesting, because it's like two different words that are combined together that people don't normally combine. And it's interesting because, first of all, we need to talk about how we grew up, talking about where we come from, and talking about, how we were raised when it comes to the topic of sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, before we go there, I'd like to state that the topic in itself, sexuality, goes beyond just sex.
Yes.
Sex is a part of sexuality.
Yes.
But there are a lot of other factors that goes into define how we experience sexuality. And the thing is this, we are all sexual beings. Even animals are sexual beings. That's the only way that they can survive, procreate, or multiply. Without sexuality, there'll be no multiplication.
No.
And before we go deep into it, I'd like to, I said, a Christian point of view. I'd like to go back to a scripture that says that God made man in his image. Male and female, he made them.
Yes.
And this is like the defining factor for sexuality in the scripture. The first time we see a diversity of sexuality, and God invented that. So God invented sexuality. And the reason why we try to come from God's point of view is because he made it. And so if he made it, he gets to define what it is. So we don't get to define it just based on how we feel, because we did not make it. And that's the point of view that we also wanna come from. And we also want to address how sexuality is addressed in the church, which should be a place where we learn things that actually help us improve that area of our lives. But it's either not talked about completely or it's addressed like a taboo topic.
Yeah. I mean, I told you this week something happened, or that Jason was coming up to me and he was like pointing at my breasts, and he was saying like, "Mommy, what is that?" Well, first of all, he was asking me if Zane and Jason were like, if they were in my stomach, and I was like, "Yeah, you guys were in my stomach." And then he was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "These are my breasts." And he was like, "Oh, okay, your breasts." And I was like, "Yeah, when you were little, I had milk and I could provide with some milk for you guys." Oh, he was smiling and he was like, something was working in his mind. And he even sometimes comes to me and he's like, "Mommy, do you have a penis?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a woman, so I have a vagina." And it's a really funny thing because the first time we addressed those things, man, I felt so uncomfortable. Even now, when I was trying to explain him my breasts and tell him, okay, this is something that a woman has, not a boy. I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, hopefully I do that right. And like, it's so weird to talk about this, but I knew that it's important that I overcome this fear or this shame of something that is natural and it's God given to talk about those things. And so that's why also we both are mostly very direct when it comes to our genitals. Like we call them by their name, by their biological names, because we feel like pretending or saying some weird names or giving it names that it doesn't actually is creates shame in itself. Because
it creates shame because like you're implying that the real name is something to be ashamed of or something inappropriate.
Yes.
Meanwhile, those are the biological names. Penis is the biological name for the male sexual organ.
It is.
And likewise, vagina.
Yeah.
Now, those words in itself are not vulgar words.
No.
They are the biological names for it.
Yeah.
And so most people, or a lot of us, have been guilty of calling it things like pee-pee or something else just because we feel like the original
or your
word.
private part or your jewels or
like the original word in itself might be too much for the kids. No, that's the word for it.
Yeah.
And like you said, you mentioned something very important, shame.
Yeah.
The first time we experience shame in the Bible is after Adam and Eve
found out that they were naked.
When they sinned.
Yeah, when they sinned. Yeah.
Like they were naked from the original intention.
That was
not a big deal for them.
It was like, that's how God created them. It was when they got the too much information, basically. That's when you got too much information, that's when the shame came. And I think that's the same thing that we have nowadays. When we get too much information, we get to have shame. And that's why it's so important how we raise our children, that we somehow protect them from sometimes too much information, and that we are actually the first ones that give them,
to inform them.
Yeah, to give them this information.
It's very important because they get to learn that from us.
Yeah.
Sexuality is very critical to how somebody develops.
Yeah.
So when they're confused about that, it can affect their whole lives and even their careers.
Yeah, it can.
So when it comes to that, we as parents should be the first place.
To do.
Not the school.
No.
Not the government. The parent is the first place where the children should learn about the sexuality from. But it's difficult to teach what you don't know or what you don't have or what you haven't received. So we felt like we should talk about this topic a bit to encourage, but also to motivate parents or Christians navigating this field to know how to address it. But we will go back to how we were raised. How were you raised? How was the topic addressed when you were growing up?
Okay, it's funny because my grandma is one that is very open. So she's very direct in a lot of areas. So she would talk about sex, so she would talk about having the first time period or having your first time or like different kind of things. So she would mostly be the one that I would go to if I wanted to have a little bit more insights. My mom on the other side was very discreet and sometimes even shameful, I would say, because she didn't want to talk. Of course she would. I knew we had this book, and in that book, we were raised with that book, and in that book they would explain how a baby was made. And it was really cute how they did it. So I grew up with that book actually, and my parents would read it to us in the way that we would understand where babies would come from. But of course you come with different, you grow up in a house where everybody says something else. So, when you're younger, it was the Storch. I don't know. It's like a bird that brings the babies to the house, or mommy and daddy love each other, and so there's a baby, and like they wouldn't really directly say what was happening. But then of course when you go to school in Germany, you have sexual education at
From
school.
what age?
Very early. I mean, at that time we started maybe with when I was 9, 8, 9, 10 years old.
But I think right now it's starting even earlier.
It's starting in kindergarten already. So when the kids are actually 3 years old, that's when they start here.
Wow.
They start maybe subtle, depends on where you send them to, but they start very early here now.
So in other words, the things that you're afraid of teaching your children because you feel like they're too small to handle.
Yes.
Once they go to school, they learn that.
Yeah, they learn that from others, and that's where my question is: is it better that you overcome your fear and your shame to tell and teach your children, or is it better that somebody else is teaching your children something that you don't have a control over?
True. That's a very good point you raised. As regards how you were raised and how early kids learn that in school now. Like when I was growing up, we hardly talk about sexuality or sex. No. What we only knew was that it was bad.
Yeah, so it was bad. Don't do it.
Save it for marriage.
Yeah, that's true. That they talked
I'm like,
about
if
that
it's
too.
so bad, why should I save it for my marriage?
Yeah. I mean, they talked about it.
Yeah.
In church.
And
also.
I mean, sexuality. And when I say it's bad, I'm talking about sex now. I don't think there was any education about how the penis works, what happens when you get an erection.
Yeah.
Or you sleep and you wake up and you get an erection.
Yeah.
Why? Or what happens when you ejaculate even though you never had sex? You just woke up and something just came out.
Yeah.
Why is that happening?
Yeah.
Why do you feel an attraction and why do you get erect when you see a beautiful lady?
Yeah.
Like nobody spoke about this topic.
Yeah.
And we had to learn this, sadly, through movies or even porn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you see the destruction of not raising kids that are aware of this part and leaving it to the society to teach them. It can be destructive.
Society, the world, the enemy.
The enemy.
To tell your children weird lies and things that never God wanted you or intended, actually.
And if God is not the one that shapes your opinion about sexuality, the devil will.
It will.
And the funny thing is, the devil doesn't come to you with horns and
big
looking
sign.
like the devil. Remember, he was once an angel, so he can come as an angel too.
Yeah.
Like, it can be perverted.
Yeah.
And we want to avoid that. Like, we are beyond just our sexual organs.
Yeah.
By the way, your organs determine most times your sexuality.
Yeah.
Your male or your female sexuality in that sense. But we are more than that. We have control over our sexuality. Yeah. The problem is when they begin to control us.
Yeah.
Because we like God made us sexual, but he also gave us self-control and other factors that helps us to put that in check.
True.
But we need the right information to be able to know what to put in check, when to put it in check, to know that it is not bad in itself that you are
having desires. Yeah. That you have a desire as a woman that you would like to have sex where it pleasures you. That you have a desire that, as a man, that you would like to have more sex, or that you would to have more pleasure. That is not a bad thing. And we need to talk about this. It is not a bad thing to want to have or be pleasured in your sex. Sex should be such a intimate, pleasurable, fun, and I don't know how to explain it, sacred thing in itself.
Yeah, sacred. Mm-hmm.
Not secret, but sacred. I mean, it's also secret in a way, but it's also sacred. And when you do it, and when you have it with the right person that you gave your yes to for the rest of your life, sex just gets better. Like, it's like fine wine. It just gets better and better and better and better. Because if you believe it or not, when you have children, of course it's hard to have sex because now you have children. But the love that you have for your spouse and the respect that you have for each other is just on another level, and more intense,
yes,
than anything else.
True.
And so we need to come back to this. We need to twist our mindset that, oh yes, sex just gets old and yucky and it's not nice anymore. And in the beginning it was exciting, and yeah, of course it was exciting. Of course, maybe even if you had it without the marriage part, it was even like something secret and something, something sexy in that way. But
adrenaline.
Yeah, adrenaline.
All the chemicals.
Is exactly.
Because we just love to do the things that we should not do.
Yes.
And it's very exciting at the beginning.
Yeah. And so I feel like we need to change our mentality in that sense to really think of, okay, when I see an old couple and they still kiss each other and love each other, and they have sex with each other, I should be like happy. I should be like, wow, this is so amazing that they still love each other in that age, and that they still have this intimate relationship. Because if you like it or not, you need it in your relationship. It's not the huge part. It's not like the first part in your relationship, but you need it to be unity, to be one, and to be intimate, and to know each other on another level.
Yeah, that's correct. Like you said, it's a very bonding factor.
Yes.
And in scriptures, sometimes you would not hear the word sex. I mean, you hardly hear sex. They use phrase like he knew his wife, or she knew her husband. So it's another level of knowledge.
Yes.
Sex in itself, it's deeper. And that's the kind of knowledge that you don't share with anybody else. And that's the reason why your spouse can know you in a way that your parents cannot.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's a deeper level of intimacy.
It's non-verbal also.
Yeah. And one of the biggest factor is when to have sex, mostly. Because you already feel like having sex once you hit adolescence. Like everything is ready.
Yeah.
And actually, biologically, you're ready.
Yeah.
Because if you do have sex without protection or anything, there is a high chance that you can get pregnant.
Yeah.
Which means that your body is ready for it. But sexuality is a combination of mind and body.
Yeah, it is.
So your body might be ready, but is your mind ready for the responsibility,
the outcome of it,
the outcome, the attachments that you can build?
Yeah.
And so when God says that a sex should be between the husband and the wife, it's not because he's trying to prevent us from having fun.
No, he's not.
But he is saying that you are ready for the consequence of your actions.
Yeah.
and the consequence of it can be sustained in the circle of marriage. And also, then I put my blessing on it.
Yeah. True.
Because there's a covenant that I've put together, and so my blessing is on it.
Yeah.
And that is the main thing behind it. It's not because somebody is just trying to be religious or whatever. And a lot of us did not understand this, and we have to be really honest about it.
Well, we have to.
We have to be really honest about it. For example, me, that was not my understanding. And so, sadly, my wife is not the first person that I know or that I knew sexually.
Yeah.
Although I'm the first person that she did.
Yeah.
And so for me, my experience was different because all I knew was rules and regulation. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
If you do it, it's a disgrace. If they catch you or if you get somebody pregnant, I'm like, okay, we're not gonna get pregnant then. Use a condom. So I was trying to avoid consequences because I didn't understand the reason why I should not.
Yeah.
Or you're going to get a disease if you do it. These are all true stuff, but that should not be the main motivating factor for not doing those things. Because there are different ways to prevent the physical consequences.
Yes.
The parts that you cannot prevent,
that
has
attachment.
no protection for soul attachment.
Yeah. I somehow, I used to describe it when I was in a youth group and I was younger, because I was always like quite aware about those things. And so how we used to describe it was like having your soul, your heart, like an apple. And every time you have sex with somebody bites something from that apple. And then you find your other, and you find the one that you want to stay with for the rest of your life. But there were already 4 or 5 people before that bit from that apple. You left with a stump. You left with not a lot. And so to regrow that means that you have to take out that seed, trying to plant it again, and a tree has to come, and then apple has to come. So it's a lot of work to get that trust back, to get that soul, that heart back. And there's a lot of baggage that comes with it.
Very correct. And you mentioned something that we said at the beginning. Sex is an act of worship.
Yeah, it is.
So if we don't have sex in the covenant, in God's covenant, we are worshiping something else.
Yes, we are.
Every time you have sex, you're worshiping something.
Yeah.
Whether we know it or not. Because everything that God made in man or for man, it should act as an expression of worship back to him.
Yeah.
Even work. Yeah. When he made Adam work in the garden, it was a worship act to God.
Yeah.
So even sex
is worship.
So it's actually
it's crazy if you
the
think
spiritual implication of it is deeper than the physical implication. Why? Because we are first of all spirit before we are body.
Yeah.
People think that we're just body, and the only reason why you can have control over your body is because you are spirit.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Yeah.
And if we're not aware of this, we only focus on the physical consequence and try to avoid those, not knowing that the spiritual implication is more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, this is deep. Thinking about it, that you worshiping while you having sex.
You're worshiping.
Let that sink in, you guys. Your natural response would be, ooh, because you think like worship is out of your mouth or something else. But knowing that worshiping is by loving one another so deeply that your body reacts to it by being pleased. Let's call it how it is, to have an orgasm. That is just crazy. It's mind blowing. It's like your first response will be ooh, but then when you think about it, it's actually quite deep, and it's very intense and also very very deep. It's just crazy. It's mind-blowing if you think about it.
And for people that are not Christians, this is not for them.
No, it's not.
Because this is like, it doesn't apply to them.
It does not.
First of all, what is worship to them? They don't care.
Yeah.
But if you are a Christian, then this applies to you.
Yeah.
That's why we said faith and sexuality, because faith is what gives context to sexuality. If you don't believe that God exists, then you don't really want to know what he has to say about what he made.
Oh my. I'm just getting a revelation, guys. Woo! This is deep. So that's why it's so important to have sex on the regular basis, because you're worshiping God with it through a regular basis. Because there are people that can wait and stay without sex for multiple months, which then of course has an effect on their relationship. I mean, the intimacy is like broken in that sense, and it's not the best for their relationship either. But then on the other side, it's not the best for your relationship to God either.
Mm-hmm. True.
Because having worship on a regular basis is important.
Yeah. It is important. And if you see it also as an act of service to one another.
Yeah.
I know we should always have sex when we're in the mood.
Yeah.
When we feel like it.
Yeah.
When everything is perfect, when the lighting is perfect.
But you know what?
But sometimes you need to have sex or make yourself get into the mood.
Because you need to break something spiritually.
You need to also be thinking about the other person, not just about yourself, if it's an act of service.
But you're breaking also something spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Because if it's worship, you're breaking something in the spiritual realm.
It is. You are.
So that's why it's so attacked. It's attacked before marriage. It's attacked during marriage. It's attacked when you're a little kid or when you're a teenager. It's always attacked.
Yes.
It's the thing that the enemy attacks the most sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sexuality. He's either perverting it, or he's reducing it, or he's making it as a secret or a shameful thing. Like he is making it bad.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so attacked about this thing, because it's if we understand that it's actually a spiritual thing, and we are breaking through something by having sex, you see it through a different thing,
a different
eye.
Yeah, different eye, yeah.
It's completely different. So actually, when you have discussions and you feel like, okay, this is actually leading nowhere and we just hating on each other. Actually, now it makes sense when people say, yeah, have sex while you're having an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're breaking something in the spiritual realm that is trying to attack you, and in response of what the enemy is trying to do, having sex on that might be like the solution, because you are connecting with one another and then realizing that what you talked about, it was just attack.
Wasn't really that a big deal in that sense. It wasn't a big deal. Yeah. No, I think there are a lot of implications to sexuality and sex that we don't know.
It is, yeah.
But we can only talk about the implication or the impact that it has made in our lives.
Yeah.
And another thing with having sex with multiple people before you come into your marriage is that you come into your marriage with a comparison mentality.
Yeah.
Because you will always compare it to your first or to your second or to your third, whatever it is. And it will also affect how much you enjoy the current person. Now, these are real things that people don't talk about. No. They only talk about, oh, don't do it, or this will happen. Or the big one, you will go to hell.
How was it for you? Because, okay, for me, we need to be honest on my side too, because I was sexually abused before I met you, and it wasn't actually far gone when I met you. It was just maybe a half a year before I met you when that happened, and affected me majorly when we were married, also when we had sex, because I would have flashbacks and I would cry, and it was hard for me because I really wanted to be free of it, but then I would cry and I would crumble actually, and I just wanted to distance myself. And that's where you were like, no, I'm not going to distance myself. I'm just going to hold you. I'm just going to be here, because we earned this together. And so through that, healing came also, and restoration came by overcoming that fear and, you know, knowing, okay, this is something that we do together and it's not for just one person. And I mean, that's how it was for me. But we were very honest from the very beginning about those things.
From the beginning.
We talked about a
From the
lot of
beginning.
things. We talked about everything. Sexual also, we talk about things. Like,
Yeah.
if I like something, I tell you, you like something.
I'll be like, hey, how was it? What do you think? How do we improve it?
Yeah.
You have to be honest about it. What do you like that I do and what should I stop doing? I mean, for me, like I said before, I never really had any specific teaching about this whole thing. So I had to learn by exploring mostly, which also left like scars, you know. So it also affected me in a lot of ways that I had to talk to you about even before we started, because I never wanted to hide that part of my life.
Yes.
I discovered the power of shame, how it can limit you as regards being honest, because when you have shame, you lie or you cast blame.
And then you already have a foundation of that in the beginning of your relationship.
So I wanted to be very clear about it, that we go into this battle or this journey, this adventure together.
And honestly.
Yeah, honesty.
With all our baggage and all our...
And also when we address our kids, we also tell them things that they need to know, because they are things that they don't need to know yet.
Yeah, they're not yet in that age.
But the basic things they need to know. But I think it's healthy that as a church we address this, like abuse. There are people who go into sexual immorality or just being extra with their sexuality just because they were abused.
Yes.
And nobody really addresses that.
No.
They need therapy for sure, but the church has to address this. Yeah. And as a family, most times our first church is our home.
Yeah.
So we also have to address this with our kids and also be protective as regards their sexuality or the kind of information that they receive that helps them define what it is.
Yeah. Even when it's uncomfortable and even when it makes you scared and you're like swallowing saliva and you're like, and your heart is racing and you're like, how am I going to do this right? But that's sometimes what I've learned, that being honest, even when it's uncomfortable, is mostly the right thing to do. And it brings so much healing, generational healing that we don't know and see yet. But I truly believe that God is bringing healing into that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not perfect. Man, we're far from perfect. We've done our mistakes. We are... we've really done our mistakes. So I really feel like we're not perfect and we're not here to judge anybody. We're not here to point
judging.
fingers on anybody and telling you how to do things right. What we ask you to do is check your heart.
And we want to be honest. We're not just here to make you feel comfortable.
We're not.
So a lot of things that we're going to say will make you uncomfortable. Otherwise, you will not make a change.
Yes, it needs to shake you.
We're not trying to point fingers like, oh, we're the perfect ones and you're the good one.
Not.
And you're the bad ones. So, but yeah, we're just saying the truth how it is. And as we're saying it, it's affecting us as it is affecting you.
Yeah. My heart is racing. I'm like, oh my goodness.
And it's never too late to make a change.
Yeah.
To start doing something different.
Yeah.
And that's the act of repentance. You make a change the moment you get the information.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And we know that God is faithful to help us to make this happen in the way that gives him glory.
And having an understanding of this brings healing for you. It brings healing for your family.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we would like.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk about this in the next episode.
Yes.
Part 2 of Faith and Sexuality. Yes. Our second son just woke up and we have to go address to him, to his personality and his hunger and his everything.
And his love.
So I hope you enjoyed this podcast.
It's
subscribe,
a quick one.
Like.
Yes. Share it with people. If you feel like, okay, this is something that people should listen to, share it. We will love. And also we have it on Spotify and now also on Apple. So please,
if you can't watch, you can just listen.
Yeah, you can just listen to it. And in Spotify, actually, we always write a question. So you can there's a community where you can write questions and answer it and, what you liked about it. And We really love to hear it. Even on YouTube, we have comment sections. So if you have questions, you can just write us. You can also write us on Instagram at Ebony and Ruth. We love to hear from you. Really, we always so happy to hear and see you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned for the next episode. It's gonna be fun. Have a wonderful time and
good week.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios, amigas. I'm doing it again. Hey, doa. We love you, people.